1776, Birth of a Nation. 1776, a year that changed the course of history. The 13 American colonies declared independence from Britain, setting in motion a revolution that would birth a new nation. But this was no sudden decision. It was the result of years of political struggle, economic tension, and social awakening. Boston Tea Party, 1773. For decades, the American colonies lived under British rule. They contributed taxes and trade profits to the empire, but had little say in how they were governed. The slogan, "No taxation without representation," captured the growing resentment among colonists. Events like the Boston Tea Party in 1773 were not just acts of rebellion. They were sparks of organized resistance. By 1775, tensions had escalated into open conflict at Lexington and Concord, marking the start of the Revolutionary War. Amid this turmoil, colonial leaders began debating the most important question of all: should America remain tied to Britain or claim its own destiny? Second Continental Congress, 1776. In 1776, the Second Continental Congress met in Philadelphia. Delegates from all 13 colonies gathered to decide the future. The debates were intense. Some feared that a full break with Britain would bring disaster. Others, like John Adams, argued that independence was the only path forward. Thomas Jefferson was chosen to draft a declaration. In it, he wrote the words that would echo for centuries: that all men are created equal, that they are endowed with unalienable rights, and that governments derive their power from the consent of the governed. July 4th, 1776. Declaration of Independence. On July 4th, 1776, the Congress officially adopted the Declaration of Independence. This bold act transformed rebellion into revolution. It was not simply a rejection of British rule, it was the birth of a new nation. Articles of Confederation, 1777. But declaring independence was only the first step. The colonies now faced the challenge of building governance from scratch. Each colony had its own laws, traditions, and economies. How could they unite under one government? The first attempt came with the Articles of Confederation, drafted the following year. This framework emphasized state sovereignty and gave little power to a central government. It reflected the colonists' fear of replacing one tyrant with another. Meanwhile, leadership during wartime was critical. George Washington, commander of the Continental Army, struggled to maintain discipline, secure supplies, and keep morale high against one of the world's most powerful militaries. Colonial economy and society, beyond politics and war, 1776 was also a year of social and economic change. The colonies were largely agricultural, relying on farming, local crafts, and trade in goods like tobacco and grains. British restrictions had stifled economic growth, but independence promised new opportunities. The belief in equality inspired many, though slavery and women's rights remained unresolved questions. This year was also a year of words. Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense, reached thousands of ordinary citizens. It argued in plain language that monarchy was corrupt, and independence was not only possible, but necessary. Socially, revolutionary ideas began to spread. For the first time, politics became part of everyday conversation in taverns, markets, and households across the colonies. Challenges of independence. But independence brought new dangers. The British Crown responded by sending more troops to suppress the rebellion. The colonies had to organize militias, coordinate strategies, and keep their fragile unity intact. Resources were scarce. Soldiers lacked proper clothing, weapons, and food. The Continental Congress struggled to raise funds. Each colony had its own priorities, and yet they had to work together to survive. At the same time, American leaders looked abroad for support. France watched the rebellion with interest. Though formal alliances would come later, 1776 marked the beginning of America's diplomatic efforts to secure international recognition. The birth of a nation. Looking back, 1776 was the year America declared its ideals. It was the year the colonies turned words into action and rebellion into revolution. The Declaration of Independence not only justified their break from Britain, it also set forth a vision of liberty and representation that would shape the nation for centuries to come. But independence was not security. It was not victory. And it was not yet freedom for all. The young nation faced enormous challenges that would test its survival in the years ahead. Next year, in 1777, the United States would face the reality of war more fiercely than ever before. Battles, hardships, and the struggle to prove that the dream of independence could endure. Join us as we continue the story of America, year by year.